just going to say it. Colin Klein is not the worst coach in the Big 12.
Neither is Scott Frost, but somehow both coaches are at the bottom of the Big 12 coaching pile.
Yeah, so what will it take for these coaches to get the respect? The same way that we're seeing from BYU's Kalani Sitake.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome on into another College Locked On Crossover. I'm your host, Mike G. I'm here with Christian Rao. Turn us on, turn us up. We'll turn it out on today's show, Christian. Could there be a Frost advisory in Orlando in Scott Frost's second year?
Yeah, maybe so. And we have to talk about that because the disrespect is happening for both Scott Frost and Colin Klein when it comes to some of these coaching rankings. Why is that the case? And we're going to look at it from a Big 12 perspective.
Yeah, speaking of a Big 12 perspective, we got the entire coaching rankings courtesy of our friend Brett McMurphy here. We're going to take a look at that before we get into the show, guys. You know the drill. Like and subscribe to both channels so we can climb those podcast algorithms, especially on YouTube. It's hard out here on these YouTube streets, Christian, but we're going to get there. So again, like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you get every notification from Locked On UCF and Locked On Kansas State. Let's start at the top here. The Big 12 coaching rankings, courtesy of our friend Brett McMurphy at On3. These are the rankings as Brett sees it. Kalani Sitake at the top. We're going to go through this. I'm going to sound it out for our friends on pod. Arizona State's Kenny Dillingham comes in at number 2. Joey McGuire, Texas Tech, comes in at 3. Sonny Dykes, TCU, number 4. Number 5 is Willie Fritz at Houston. Kansas's Lance Leopold, number 6. Number 7, Rich Rodriguez, West Virginia. Eric Morris, Oklahoma State at 8. Number 9 is Brennan at Arizona. Number 10, Dave Aranda at Baylor. Number 11 is Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati. Morgan Scalley at Utah. Number 12. Number 13, as we mentioned, Scott Frost, UCF. Number 14, Jimmy Rogers, Iowa State. Number 15, Deion Sanders, Colorado. And number 16, Colin Klein, the newbie, Kansas State. What do you think about these rankings overall? Obviously, there's kind of an experience aspect, I think, to the top of the rankings, but certainly the top of the rankings follow the results in the Big 12 the last couple of years.
Yeah, sure. Oh, that's fine. And I don't mind that whatsoever. And we're seeing Colin Klein at the bottom here. And I kind of mentioned this on a show earlier this week when I, kind of addressed this rankings. I don't mind that Colin Klein is at the bottom because I do think that's a sort of a respect thing when it comes to experience. Colin Klein doesn't have any head coaching experience. Now, we know what he did at Texas A&M this past year, but I mean, other than that, this is his first year as a head coach. What I don't like about this, and this is what gets me on this entire thing, because again, I don't think that there's room really to complain about putting Colin Klein towards the bottom. But Morgan Scalley of Utah does not have head coaching experience.
Yeah.
So how are you going to put him above Deion Sanders, Scott Frost, and Jimmy Rogers, who all have a bowl game appearance at least once in their head coaching career, at the very minimum? Jimmy Rogers, Deion Sanders, Scott Frost have all gone to at least a bowl game. Morgan Scalley has been a defensive coordinator at Utah for quite some time, but that's it. And then let me just add one more caveat to that. Why I think Colin Klein shouldn't be 16th. If you put him 15th, fine. Morgan Scalley should be at the bottom. Because how many of these coaches have a college football playoff appearance? I count 3 on the list. Texas Tech's coach.
Yep.
Arizona State's coach.
Yep.
Colin Klein as the offensive coordinator last year inside the college football playoffs.
That's right. It's funny to me. Again, we're going to get into Klein's resume here in our second segment, but you're absolutely right in pointing out. But this is where I think maybe coaches like players, I say this, across teams that I cover, the association with losing sometimes hurts for a program, hurts players and coaches alike. Utah went 11-2 in conference last year. Obviously, 7-2 in conference, 11-2 overall. And when they're making these rankings, sometimes I think they get it mixed up with here are what the results were versus in a situation. He may be in a better situation at Utah, according to Brett, but that doesn't make him a better coach than Colin Klein. Again, what are you basing that on? Exactly. And again, I don't want to give away our next segment, but I agree. I could not agree with you more. I mentioned these rankings kind of following the results last year. Texas Tech obviously went to the college football playoff. I thought BYU could have been in there last year over Tulane or maybe even James Madison. But they finished 12-2. Utah finished 11-2 last year. Houston finished 10-3, a team that UCF took down to the wire. As a matter of fact, they had the game-winning touchdown open and just didn't have a quarterback that could hit the broadside of a barn. Arizona at 9-4. Those were your top 5 teams in conference last year. So when you look at these rankings, who do you see at the top? Well, you see BYU, you see Arizona State, you see Texas Tech. You see TCU. I have questions about TCU and Sonny Dykes. You see Willie Fritz at Houston, again at number 5. They finished 4th in conference. So there is somewhat of a correlation here, I think, between results on the field and where those coaches are seen in terms of. But Rich Rodriguez at 7.
6 is crazy too. Let's not skip that.
Yeah. Let's leave. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know if I feel where Brett's coming here from after. Oh man, after
they were 5-7 last year. They've lost 17 straight. The Kansas State and the Sunflower Showdown. I know he wasn't there for all 17. I mean, what he has done, what he has turned Kansas into, because Kansas was in complete shambles beforehand, kind of like what Deion Sanders had before Colorado took over. They're kind of in that same boat there. Now, you could say probably this is the floor for Kansas is a little higher than Colorado at the moment, where I think they're floating around being, bowl eligible team, 5-7, 6-6. That's probably where they sit again this year. But is that good enough to put you as a top 6 coach in this conference? I just don't see that. I don't see that whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a ton of separation between the top 3 in the conference and everybody else. The Big 12, I've said this for a couple of years now since I've been covering UCF, is wide open. It feels like from year to year. Remember, it wasn't that long ago that Utah was picked to finish 1st in the conference to win it all by the media and then finish dead last. Meanwhile, right. Arizona State, who was picked to finish last, won it all and went to the college football playoff and gave Texas a run for their money. So
what is your thoughts? What is your reasoning for Sonny Dykes? Because look, I've been very clear on my show when we do like season previews and things like that. I have the hardest time getting a grasp on TCU. Like out of every school in the conference, I'm always just like, I don't know what to make of TCU. Obviously, they had that run in 2022 where they lost to Kansas State in the Big 12 tournament or Big 12 conference game, but they wound up going to the national championship game. Sonny Dykes does have that on there. No other college coach in this Big 12 has a natty appearance on their resume. So, I mean, he deserves to be higher, but like, what do you make of him on these rankings here?
I may be a little tough in this. You're absolutely right. You should get credit for making a national title game. They also own the largest national title beatdown in the history of college football, right? Like,
that's true.
I mean, that was an absolute bludgeoning. And
but they made it, right? But they made it. And they beat Michigan on the way.
There was a lot of argument about whether they should have, though, or not, right? There was a lot. Let's not act like they were a consensus, pick to make that game. Or a lot of people felt like they didn't belong in that game. And I was one, if I count me, I was one of them. And the result didn't dissuade any of us from that notion. But I want to take you back, right, to what was it 2020? 2023. Let me take you back to 2023. Deion's first year, and they were like, as you mentioned, they were coming off that national title appearance
against TCU.
Yeah. And Deion comes out and beats you. The first year college head coach comes out and beats TCU 45-42. Now, they went on to have a disappointing season by their standards. You came, and this is where I agree with you. I have a hard time pegging them down. Coming off a national title, you don't make a bowl game. You're 5-7. You don't make a bowl game. What do you do with that? Or did they go to you didn't make a bowl game.
Right.
So like
they lost a ton of talent. Duggan, Johnston, they lost a ton of talent. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just there were some lopsided results in that season as well too. I just, look, man, yes, you lost a ton of talent, but if you want to be a top program in college football, reloading is part of the game. Right? The Georgias and Alabamas, they lose a ton of talent every year too in terms of experience, but it's next man up. So if you haven't recruited well enough to stay at the top when inevitably attrition keeps up with you, are you really a top program in the conference or in college football?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I want to give him credit because he made it to the Natty. Right. I think that's credit's deserved because, look, you could say all you want to say about Sonny Dykes and like maybe that TCU team back in 2022 before the whole thing happened with Deion the following year, which was like Deion's highlight of his, coaching career so far at Colorado. But when I look at Sonny Dykes there and you talk about it, like maybe not a lot of people thought that they deserved to be there. Once they beat Michigan, I think they silenced those doubters in the 4-team playoff. So, I mean, I think they're willing to be up there. I don't agree with this list, though. Yeah. I think even if we're going to talk about Colin Klein in a minute, and we haven't even got Scott Frost.
Wait. Can we agree that Kalani Sitake belongs at the top?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I think
mean, Crumble Cookies agrees. I mean, everybody agrees that. I mean, everybody wanted Kalani Sitake this offseason. There was multiple people. I think Penn State was very close at getting him to go, and then he wound up staying around. I think Kalani Sitake is the best coach in the Big 12. I like the 1-2. I don't disagree with Kalani Sitake and Kenny Dillingham right now for what they've done. You can make the argument. People can say, well, McGuire deserves to be there. This is his first year ever that he got that 10 wins this past year, and they did it with a ton of money. So if you're looking at it from a coaching standpoint, not a roster construction standpoint, it's hard for me to put McGuire over those other two. So I actually don't mind the top three the way they are.
Do you ding Kenny Dillingham at all for not being able to hold on to his quarterback?
That seemed like there was writing on the wall, man. So as much as I want to, no, I can't ding him. Because you know why I can't ding him? Because he stuck around at Arizona State because he obviously could have left. It sounded like he was the front runner to go to Michigan before Whittingham was. So
yeah, I can't ding him. He really understands what that program is. I will never forget him after they made the college football playoff, getting in front of a microphone and essentially saying, please give us money. This crap is too hard without it. Like, if you want us to get back, we need the businesses of this community to get involved. And
it's wild that we're only 5 years removed of Herm Edwards getting fired on the field.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's hard to relock and reload. Yeah, the same way we give TCU credit for getting a national title game, I give Arizona credit for not only winning the conference, but making the college football playoff. Where I give them even more credit is when they got in the conversation, Texas did not run them off the field. As a matter of fact, they gave Texas all they wanted in that game. Yeah, I mean, they had overtime. Come on, man.
Their college football playoff appearance was way more impressive than what Texas Tech was by a mile.
They represented the Big 12 well when they got into the conversation, and that's what the conference needs, man. Yeah. We need our representatives to play well when they get there. So this is where I ding TCU. Yes, you got into the conversation. You got into the conversation, right? But you can't get historically get your back blown out when you get there, which is what they did. Georgia the game was over in the first quarter, man. I need to see. You don't have to win them all, but I need to see something when you get there. And I think that is either a endorsement or an indictment on a coach, how your team prepares for the moment. Lots of coaches have gotten their team to the door, and some of them have the unfortunate reality that they will be remembered for not being able to get their teams over the hump. Look, man, it was just not that long ago that Ryan Day broke through that, right, at Ohio State.
True.
Right? Yeah, people are starting to wonder, like, is this guy ever going to get it done? When Kirby Smart took over Georgia, it's not like he was taking over a team that was in the dumps. I mean, 9 wins, it felt like the absolute floor for Georgia when he took over, but they said that's not good enough here. we have the resources and the history and the tradition to go win championships. And that's exactly what he went out and did. Every team, what this list is, every team in the Big 12 is looking for their guy that's going to get them into the conversation year in and year out. BYU has that in Kalani Sitake. And I would argue that almost every other team in the conference not named BYU is probably still searching for that guy. Ken Dillingham's doing a great job. I just think Arizona State's a really hard place to maintain because he admits that the resources aren't where they need to be. Texas Tech, the resources are clearly there. But I got questions, man, about that program. Why was a program like Texas Tech fighting tooth and nail for Sorsby rather than just saying, you know what, that's why we recruit next man up?
Yeah. Let's keep that going. And I got another question for you, but we need to go to a break. Let's take a break and let's come on back and let's talk about that.
Let's get to the break. And when we come back, we're going to go even deeper into these Big 12 coaching rankings.
But first, this episode, Locked On College Crossover, is brought to you by our friends at Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales. Man, somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. It's an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform, from sales to accounting to inventory and marketing. Everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focused on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working towards the same goal. And that's true in sports, just like in business.
And as in sports and business, there are multiple things happening at multiple times. In sports, you've got coaches that need to talk to trainers. You've got trainers that need to talk to medical staff. You've got medical staff that need to talk back to coaches. You've got equipment guys. It takes an absolute village to make a college football game happen, to move a team across the country and be prepared to win. And if one arm can't talk to the other, Christian, it is hard to have a successful team, just like it's hard in business to have a successful organization when no one knows what the other is doing. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try Odoo for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Bring your business together today with Odoo. Locked On UCF, Locked On K State listeners, we've got a deal for you, and it's the Everydayer Club. Head on over to lockedonucf.supercast.com or lockedonkansasstate.supercast.com to get signed up today. All that we ask that you do is listen to our shows. But if you want to go a step further in supporting the work that we're doing at Locked On UCF and Locked On Kansas State, the Everydayer Club is a great way for you to get involved. It's only $5. That's less than a Starbucks coffee in this economy, but it goes a long way into ensuring that we can continue to bring you daily content on your UCF Knights and your Kansas State Wildcats. Our Everydayers get an ad-free feed of the show, as well as access to private Discords where you can chop it up with other Knight and Wildcat fans just like yourself. It's the Everydayer Club. As always, we appreciate your support.
All right, I want to dive into this Big 12 power ranking just a little bit more before I give you my gripes about Colin Klein. And of course, I want to hear your thoughts about Scott Frost being on this list. But look, we kind of talked in full about the Kenny Dillingham, Sonny Dykes conversation, the Texas Tech conversation, where you are making it to the big stage and you either don't succeed or you do it by very closely, and that's where they are the rankings. So I kind of want to throw a scenario out at you, and then we can move on here. What would you rather have? Would you rather make it to the national championship game, get completely blown out, brakes blown off, that's exactly where you're at, or make it just to the first round and get shut out? Maybe not by a lot. You're still seen as a laughing stock, but not in the same way you did in a national championship game. What spot would you rather be?
That's a great question. It's hard to make an argument that going further is not better.
What's the end goal, right?
Right, because you have to because it means you won more games. From the player's perspective, though, I can tell you, it doesn't matter when you lose. If you did not win, they don't care. Right? I had this conversation with Alonza Barnett at the end of spring practice. He was not happy just to have made the college football playoff. He said, we didn't win.
But if you would have had, if they would have lost the Natty, you think it would have been the same exact conversation?
In the players' minds, high-level elite players don't care if it's the first round or if it's the Natty. If you didn't win, you're still a loser at the end of the day. I think for resume purposes, though, and it's something. It's more for us, the fans, I think, to talk about, right? Like, it is better that you go further because it means that you overcame more. You have to win more games to get there, period. And I think that winning is valuable because you find more things that work. Your players get a taste of what it's like. Depending on the makeup, if your guys are built right, if they've got the right stuff up here, Christian, getting to a national title game and falling just short will stick in their craw in just the right way. That they will come back and they will play with a fire the next year and say, no way we're going to go through that again. We get to you let us in this thing again, we're going to win it. I'm telling you, it's there's something to being able to taste it, to be that close, but not get over the hump that's motivating for elite players.
So what was more impressive, TCU going to the Natty or Texas Tech getting blown out in the first round, getting shut out in the first round? What was more impressive? If I had, throw it at you. It's TCU, right?
TCU. I would say this. TCU made a 14 playoff.
The reason I'm throwing this at you is because if it's TCU, then why isn't Sonny Dykes ahead of McGuire in the coaching rankings? Is that recency bias?
That's fair. Maybe it's recency bias. And it could be, though, that I hate to say this, man, but the affiliation with the particular schools matters in this case as well,
of course
too.
It does.
But I think that last year, it's why Vanderbilt maybe misses a playoff they should have been in. For so long, they've been Vanderbilt. And they're in the SEC, so they should have more cachet than James Madison or Tulane. I don't think we could sit here and argue that either one of those teams proved that they belonged in the games that they played. Those games
they
were
won.
largely
They got in
over by
because of the
halftime.
conference rule. They got in because of the conference rule that's
Correct,
no longer there. So if we were in that same scenario this year, then Vanderbilt would have made it in. BYU would have made it in. Absolutely.
I'm talking about just perception here, right? I think that Vanderbilt.
Well, I guess it would have been Notre Dame and BYU actually.
Yeah. BYU certainly I think should have been in. But there are certain, like some programs get the benefit of the doubt and others don't, and until and this is why I think that TCU getting there, but then getting blown out the way they did, and then following that up with a loss to Colorado in their season opener, it may, whether it's fair, and I'm not saying that it's fair. I'm saying in the minds of the people who didn't want to see them there, it validated why they didn't want to see them there, right? So continuity and reloading matters.
Ooh,
it matters, and if you can reload consistently, how well has TCU reloaded year after year? How well has Texas Tech reloaded year after year?
You are reloading up my ammo when it comes to the segue that I'm about to do right here.
Sure, absolutely.
You basically told me that results matter. I think that's fair. You basically said results matter. So let me ask you this: blind resume. I'm not talking about anybody specific here.
Okay.
If you're a defensive coordinator in the Big 12, and I don't know, you're playing a conference game, and you allow 472 yards of total offense, you'd say that's pretty bad, right? You'd say that's pretty bad. That's what Morgan Scalley's defense did against Kansas State last year. Joe Jackson broke the single-season rushing record that was held by Darren Sproles against Utah last year. And Morgan Scalley's above Colin Klein?
Darren Sproles is, by the way, one of my all-time favorite players.
So, and that tells you everything you need to know, that a record held by Darren Sproles. We all know. If you're a Big 12 believer that you've been around for quite some time, you know what Darren Sproles was like in
2003 Kansas State Wildcats were legendary.
So that's my biggest gripe with this list. I don't care that he's towards the bottom. Actually, I love that he is because it's chip on your shoulder. It's respect. It gives me that same Arizona State vibes from a couple of years ago when they were at the bottom of the preseason polls. They went and won the whole dang thing. I like that. But just be consistent, and you're not doing.
You want
that
the graphic here? Do you want the graphic, Christian?
No, go ahead. That's really all I had. It's my gripe. We can start talking about Scott Frost maybe after the break, but like this is my gripe. This is my gripe though, because again, college football playoff appearance. The only other two teams or two coaches on there are the ones that were there the last 2 years, and they're rightfully in good spots in this ranking. I understand you put him at the bottom because he doesn't have head coaching experience. I get that. I get that completely, 100%. Just be consistent. Where you have Morgan Scalley should not be where you
agreed.
Have
yeah, what he did with Marcel Reed last year was remarkable.
Right, and wait till you see what he does with Avery Johnson, the guy he recruited in 2022.
And I got to see what Klein cooked up with that Texas A&M offense September 27th versus Auburn. I got to see that.
Oh, man, some of those games were insane last year offensively. The Notre Dame game, the LSU game.
That was a very, very, very good Auburn defense that they went up against. And look, there were never going to be a lot of points to be had in that game. But when they needed a play call, he cooked it up. And where I think K-State is in good hands is that they've got one of the best play callers in college football now as a head coach. I think that the team will take on the personality of this particular head coach. And hopefully where Kansas State stalled at points on offense last year, your system will help you overcome that. He's inheriting a quarterback that I don't think has played his best football yet. And based on what he was able to get out of Marcel Reed, could he do the same with Avery Johnson?
And I'll throw something back at you. I think your head coach and Scott Frost, although he's getting a lot of bias held against him for what happened in Nebraska, and we can talk about it when we go to once we come back from break, he has a quarterback that has not played his best football yet.
I would agree. You know what? Let's go ahead and do that. Let's get to the break, and when we come back, let's change gears and let's talk a little bit about what UCF has going on in Orlando. We'll talk about that next, right here on Locked On Crossover.
Look, Scott Frost is a great coach. We all know that. What he did in phase one, era one of UCF was certainly impressive. It was not in the Big 12. I think a lot of people hold that against him because it wasn't in a power status. There's a lot of things that are being held against Scott Frost right now. I'm going to throw this at you. I'm going to give you the ammo. You can already fight this. So you already have, now you just have me in your corner right now. I do think there is some things happening with the bias, how things did not go right in Nebraska. I think those may be rightfully so to a degree. But what we saw from him last year, slowly building up with all the injuries he had to deal with at some of the most important positions on this roster, and he still was able to go and get one of the most impressive quarterbacks in the portal because the belief system is obviously there, tells me all I need to know why he should not be this low on that list.
Yeah, look, Scott Frost comes in at number 13 on this list, right? I'm gonna pull the list back up here. So while Colin Klein is last, Scott Frost is just a couple spots over him at 13. Now, this follows the results a little bit. Obviously, you were a 5-win football team last year. So, I mean, I get it. I get why you don't put him over a lot of guys on this list. But I think it's causing people to sleep on the potential at UCF. They were really they were a quarterback away from being an 8-win football team last year. That defense was legit, and they got put in a lot of bad situations. Now, you mentioned what he was able to do, in the first Scott Frost era at UCF. And while it was not in the Big 12, they solidified that season by absolutely booty blasting Auburn in Atlanta. Like, that was a beat. They came ready to play. They wanted it. And for any Auburn person watching this and saying, "Oh, but Auburn didn't," no, not giving them that. Right? You were in a bowl game in your backyard and you got blown out. And when I say in your backyard, for those of you who don't know, it's like a 90-minute drive from Auburn, Alabama to the Mercedes-Benz Dome. So, as a matter of fact, Christian, I have something here. to commemorate that blowout. It's
Look
funny
at
the
that.
things you come across in this business. This is a belt from that game, from that
Wow.
Beach Bowl.
Look at that.
Yeah. Oh, and the champs on the other side, baby. I know somebody who had this in their office, and it was. They were like, "Mike, you want
that's a perfect thing for you."
I was like, "Of course, I want that." Yeah. At the end of the day, we're talking about a guy ranked 13th. He's in his second year, and look at this schedule last year. I just want to point some things out here about this schedule. Now, Kansas State owned one of the better, like the more dominant. It didn't feel like UCF ever really had a chance at that game. I thought Kansas State played well. They were at Kansas State last year, but you had a 7-point loss to Kansas the week after. And it was, when I tell you, quarterback play was such a problem. The games that this team could have won if they could just score a normal amount of American football points. Christian, holy crap, that 27-20 loss, it was it was like, man, you could have won that game. They mustered like 20 points. That's all they gave up to Cincinnati, to Sorsby and Cincinnati. All we heard was, how are you going to stop Brendan Sorsby? Well, crap. You stopped yourself in that game. You blow out West Virginia, and then you get Baylor. The Baylor thing just irks me, man. It just irks me. They had a great quarterback, and Michael Trigg was unbelievable, but they just didn't show up to that game. Houston, again, look at where to 30-27. They had the winning touch, the game-winning touch at the end of the game. It was open, but you don't have a quarterback that hit the broadside of the barn, so he short threw it, and it was intercepted rather than it being a touchdown that wins you the game. Unreal. You get blown out by Texas Tech, no surprise there. 3-point win over Oklahoma State, and then they jumped out 14-0 on BYU, off to an incredible start. But poor quarterback play, and they couldn't sustain it. And you end up losing the game by 3 scores. There were 3 wins that they left on the table, and I want to be clear about this. Houston was the space game. That should have been a dub. The Kansas game should have been a dub, and Cincinnati was a winnable game. That's an 8-win football team right there, with a potential for a 9th win in a bowl game. And they I'm telling you, I think Alonza Barnett could be the difference between what they were and what they can be this coming season. So Scott Frost at 13th, I'm okay with right now, but you're going to remain at 13th if you can't cook something up with this quarterback this year. And if he gets hurt, that won't be an excuse. You need 2 quarterbacks that can do the job. I think Kewan Jenkins is trending to be the backup here. But if you don't have a guy who can step in that you can reasonably win games you should win with, then you haven't done your job this offseason. But you can't have 2 years straight where you don't have one quarterback that can get the job done. That's why you go out and you get Alonza Barnett. We didn't see a lot of him this spring because he had a nagging little injury. They were trying to ensure against him not doing anything crazy with that this spring. But, man, if he can be 80% of the guy this year that he was at JMU last year, that will be 500% better than anything they got from quarterback last year.
Yeah.
That's how bad they were at quarterback last year.
And the non-conference schedule you guys have is great. You have three easy wins, at least doable wins. Definitely realistic wins.
Pittsburgh early is going to be a little bit. I mean, they went 8-4 in the regular season last year. I think this is going to be a better non-conference test than North Carolina was last year. So we'll learn more about them versus Pittsburgh than we did. Versus North Carolina was just so bad last year.
I guess you could say that, but I think UCF is a better roster than you did have last year, especially if the quarterback position is fine, especially if you're healthy. So maybe as long as your defense is ready to go, then yeah. And then if that's the case, you need to go 4-5 in Big 12 play, and you're a 7-win team at the very least.
Yeah,
like that's completely doable. 100% doable.
It is doable. It's just, again, this is a results-driven business. So when we talk about coaching rankings It's going to be about what you've done. If you haven't done anything, then that's why you see guys like Colin Klein at the bottom of the list, right? And I agree with you. Just keep the same energy for other guys
consistent.
that haven't done anything, like at Utah. I mean, any coordinator hasn't coached the game. Why? Why do they think that he's going to be that much better? Like better than guys who have actually coached and won games? Do I think the guy at Utah right now is better than Scott Frost, who owns an undefeated season? No, I don't. I'm sorry. I'm okay with him at 13, but I'm not okay with this dude, Joey, way up ahead of him.
Yep.
Willie Fritz. I'm not okay with that. At 5? Really? 5? Give me a break, man. That is an absolute joke. And I would love to hear from him where that reasoning comes from. You can say you feel the program is in a better place, but it doesn't make him a better coach. What has he done? Spoiler alert, nothing. He hasn't done anything. So we'll see, but we'll see about Colin Klein as well, too.
It's true. That's 100% true. And look, we're on this kind of show right here, UCF, Kansas State, where there is a little bit of similarities. What Scott Frost tried to do in Nebraska, going back to his home roots, didn't really work out. Hoping the same thing doesn't happen for Colin Klein. Hoping there's a little bit better. Hoping there's a little bit better results for Colin Klein in Kansas State than it was for Scott Frost at Nebraska. Because let's just keep it real. That's a thing that is probably going to be compared a time or two this season.
Yeah, I agree. Look, man, great conversation, Christian, as always, talking a little UCF football and Kansas State football. It's the coaching rankings. I got to tell you, our QB ranking segment ruffled a lot of feathers. So we'll see if the coaching ranking segment ruffles as many feathers. If you caught us late here, we opened up talking about Brett McMurphy's head coaching rankings for the Big 12. Kalani Sitake led the list at BYU, notably Joey McGuire at 3, Texas Tech. Those are the teams that people really feel like will challenge for the conference this year. We'll see how Texas Tech does Hassan Sorsby. I think we learn a lot about Joey McGuire here. Whatever the backup plan was, I'm not sure how confident they feel in it, because they were ready to fall on this sword for Sorsby, man. And I'm a little shocked at that, right? At the resources that they didn't go out and get a guy that they feel good about behind Sorsby. So lots of interesting things, I think, to watch in the Big 12. Easily the most parity of the Power 4 conferences.
I agree. Couldn't agree more with that one.
Yeah. So let's go on and get out of here, guys. I want to thank you for joining us on this Locked On crossover. Do us a favor, hit the comments after the video. Let us know what you think about Brett McMurphy's coaching rankings, Christian. Also, let us know what you think about where Scott Frost and Colin Klein are at on this list. We want to hear from you. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow with more Locked On UCF and Locked On Kansas State. It's a Locked On crossover.